What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here. I'm back today with episode 29 of my Georgia Tech OMSCS vlog. And today I'm going to be talking about the fifth assignment of CS 6475, which is all about computational photography. So A5 focused on video textures, which effectively is just GIFs. So it was a pretty interesting, although short and sweet, assignment that I had to do this week. In addition to that, I also completed the third notebook quiz. And yeah, I figured I'd just fill you guys in on all the progress that's been made thus far. In addition to that, I'll just preface the next episode, which I might wait a little bit to release because I want to actually get through the whole project, is going to be about Project 2. So we have, I think, 3 weeks to do it because it is currently the 26th of October and it's due the 14th of November. So roughly 3 weeks to do this project. It's pretty major. I anticipate it being more difficult than Project 1 was, and that was pretty tough. So yeah, there'll be a lot more technically in-depth video coming up in the next few weeks about Project 2 and probably the final exam rolled in there as well, because I'll start preparing for that if I'm proactive, which I'll try to be. So yeah, so this one is going to be pretty short and sweet like the last episode, just talking about an assignment, my thoughts on it, kind of my thoughts on the class overall, and yeah, you know the drill, so let's get right into it. So what was assignment 5 about? Well, assignment 5 was about video textures, and effectively it was just kind of the assignment associated with the video lectures, right? I think the video lectures went a lot more in depth than the assignment would kind of let on. And that's been a recurring theme in this class, where the lectures go really in depth and then the assignment is kind of representative of the core concepts that were covered in lectures, but definitely not to the level of rigor that they actually went through. I think for most of the assignments, that's been a good ratio, if you could think about it, of technical rigor to actual assignment as an abstraction of that rigor. This one was a little light for me, I feel like the video lectures were really interesting and we learned a lot of cool stuff, and this didn't really touch on any of it, right? The reason I say that is because what we were tasked with doing was effectively for a given GIF. If you look at the frames within that GIF, 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a jump at the end of the GIF that signifies the last frame ending and the first frame starting, and it restarts. And usually the last frame looks pretty different from the last frame, especially if it's a meme or something, right? So that jump cut is pretty jarring. And what we were tasked with doing was finding the frame within the GIF that would make the best looking, most natural endpoint, so that jump is minimized or, if possible, eliminated. And the way you do that is really just SSD, as in sum of squared differences, right? So that is something that we talked about in the last set of lectures. We've discussed this many times, right? It was in the project. It was a part of the high dynamic range assignment, if I recall, even though it was a small one. So there's lots of different times that this concept of SSD has come up, and effectively we're just running it in a loop this time. We're running it in a loop and we're finding the frame that's the minimum distance, sum of square distances from the first frame, and then we're picking that as the endpoint, and that's really it, right? So that was itself a reduction of kind of the applications we talked about in the lectures and that were alluded to in the paper, where in that one, you're actually, so for a candle or something, the example they used was a flickering candle. You're ordering them in kind of like a sequential minimum distance from one to the next to the next. So you have this differences term and you have this smoothing term. So it kind of has a line of best fit feel to it. And as a result, you get something out that has the most natural looking motion that you can get from any given set of frames, right? So that actually really changes the motion dynamics you see in the candle. And then they even talked about other examples with okay, what if you're doing something that has known dynamics, like a pendulum where it's swinging back and forth? Can we use our knowledge of the dynamics to influence how we order these frames? So what I'm trying to get at here is that there was a lot of really, really cool stuff in the lectures, and to me this felt like an oversimplification of what we discussed, versus in the rest of the assignments it felt like a good simplification. The one that comes to mind for me is definitely assignments 2 and 3 about pyramid blending and panoramas, where in the pyramid blending stuff we learned about frequency analysis and gradients and all this stuff, I may have to use it in kind of this contrived example, but that did touch on all the topics that we discussed. And same thing for panoramas, right? Where panoramas is kind of a contrived example of where you might do something with feature matching. Obviously, feature matching has many applications, most of which are more complex than just building a panorama, but nonetheless, it forced us to use those kinds of concepts. So those, I think, were a good kind of ratio to lecture content to assignment, where this one was a little light on the assignment. But I'm not going to complain. I do feel like I said, it seemed a little front-loaded, but also I'm not complaining because it's going to get pretty heavy towards the end in terms of like these huge assignments that I have to make sure I get right because they're worth a lot, right? So yeah, I think the assignment was fine. Didn't take me very long, wasn't very stressful, which again, I appreciate. Assignment was fine, and I think the lectures probably for this unit, the videos unit, were the majority of the value, which I think has been true overall in this course versus in other courses I've taken, like the robotics class. I think the assignments were most of the value. I think in this one, the lectures have been most of the value, but you know, again, I think the lecture is really great and I'm enjoying them, so I'm not going to complain too much. Yeah, let's talk about Notebook 3. So Notebook 3 effectively was pretty straightforward and just kind of was associated with the third notebook, right? Which talked about histograms of gradients, some matrix math that we've touched on in the different units. So overall, like, these notebook quizzes to me have kind of been a non-issue. Like, they don't really stress me out in terms of the actual assignments. I think that they're just kind of there as like a placeholder. We have to do some kind of quiz assessment or something throughout the lecture or throughout the semester, and so it seems like this kind of satisfies that requirement. It only took me about 30 minutes. I think we're given like 90 minutes to do it. And so yeah, I think I did well, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, Notebook 3 was fine. I don't actually know. You know, let me check. If I look at the syllabus, I will say, I alluded to this in the beginning, but the course website for computational photography is like really good. So that's interesting. Yeah, A4, A5, Notebook 3 quiz. Yeah, and that's it. So literally, just while we're here, right? Project 2 is due the 14th, and then we have a final portfolio, which is just kind of our opportunity to talk about a little bit of what we did over the semester. I think I may actually go complete that, even though it's extra credit, because I have a personal portfolio, and it would be nice to throw this all up there. And then the final exam, which has a 3-day window, which is kind of not a good window, but that's okay. Just to touch on Project 2 a little bit, Project 2 has to do with seam carving. So I was kind of under the impression that Project 2 was like a choose your own adventure type of thing, but doesn't actually seem like that's the case. It seems like we're again tasked with implementing a specific paper and yeah, replicating all the results, writing about it in a report, et cetera, et cetera. You know the drill from my last video. So yeah, this one is gonna be about seam carving, which to me at first glance, again, I haven't looked at it much, is some kind of like image warping while preserving kind of relative ratios in the image so that it makes logical sense. That's my like super rough approximation of what this is actually gonna be about. So in any case, you know, this is gonna be another large report with like re-implementing the entire paper, implementing the helper functions of the algorithm described, and yourself, right? Because one thing I do like about the projects is on the projects, you're given less kind of boilerplate code that you have to slot yourself into. Like I was saying earlier, A5 was pretty simple because you would just say like, this is my SSD function and then do it. And then this is my, histogram function and just do it. It gives you all the boilerplate that you need. And so you're really just kind of slotting stuff in like absent-mindedly. I shouldn't say absent-mindedly, but what I'm trying to say is the core algorithm loop and architecture, you don't really have to worry about. That's handled for you, the pipeline, if you will. And that also kind of alludes to why in the projects, they make you draw out your computational pipeline so that you demonstrate that you understand the algorithm as a whole, not just its constituent parts. And so we're gonna have to do that again for seam carving. So overall, I think I'm kind of neutral towards this project at this point. I think I have made my final opinions about the class. I feel like I know what I'm going to talk about in my review, but I'm trying to keep them open-minded as I go. And so I think the biggest unknown for me, assuming Project 2 is of a similar quality to Project 1, which for the record, I think Project 1 was solid. Assuming it's of a similar quality, I don't think it'll change my opinion much. The final exam, however, I don't really know anything like how they're going to do that. Whether it's proctored or an open thing, I think it's kind of an open thing, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, overall, I think this is going to be pretty straightforward. And yeah, I will talk about it in a future vlog episode. I think it might take me a little bit longer to release this one because I'm just gonna wait until I've completed the whole project overall. But yeah, excited to share it with you guys once it's completed. Overall, I think we're in a good spot for the class. Nothing too crazy coming up. And yeah, it's basically everything for this vlog. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm the Unhinged Engineer. Aside from vlogging my grad school journey, I'm also making lots of professional development content for other young engineering people like myself. If that's something you're interested in, you're interested in taking your career to the next level, then definitely like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.